Hey everybody, Brian Good here with your latest update on Storm Talk. We'll get you through the storm chances the next few days, and then I'll hand it over to Andy Weingarten to take care of everything for midday, and then Kevin for this evening as I go to sleep at some point. All right, let me cover the outlooks from the Storm Prediction Center first, and then I'll show you two of the main short-range models that we look at, and then after we do that, then we'll dive into the analysis. As always the case, these blogs are for detailed thoughts. If you want the nuts and bolts forecast, when's it going to rain, how much, when, where, blah, 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 it's on the app, the hourly is, or it's on way3.com. This is a detailed discussion, so if this is not your flavor, this is not the video to watch. For some of you, you always kind of are curious, how do we come up with the forecast? What are the caveats to it? What are the things we're watching for that could go wrong? This is what this is about. So let's discuss the outlooks first. For this afternoon, slight risk outlined here in the yellow, south of Louisville, central Kentucky included. Green area is a marginal risk. Overall, I agree to an extent on this one. There's a couple of issues here with that we will break down to why I'm not as confident on this area as I am over here in eastern Kentucky. All right, for tomorrow, this is the one that's capturing all the headlines. MCS is likely to rake through the Midwest, head into Ohio. Moderate risk out in the northern part of the Ohio Valley. A very rare event to have happen in June, by the way. The slight risk in our area, but notice the angle to it. That angle is not a mistake. The angle, there's a reason for that angle. We'll discuss that and see what impact it could have on us. And then as the front finally moves in on Thursday, here's the outlook, mainly east of 65, although to me, it looks like it's going to be a little more, today's outlook actually would fit in some cases more than the one for Thursday would. So, for Thursday itself. So we'll see how that plays out. So those are the three periods that we'll be tracking. So let me start you off the models. This is the RPM, or actually, I'm sorry, let me cover the radar trend first. The front came through here. It's a weak boundary. It's very diffuse, so it's really difficult to pick out where it is because there's not much of a shift in wind that's taking place. There's a slight drop in the moisture levels in Indiana, but nothing dramatic. So we're just waiting to see how much of the cumulus field builds up here this afternoon. That'll give us a good idea of where the storms will be. But so far, it's relatively quiet. And it's warm, 82 degrees here in the city, 82 in Evansville, 81 into Bowling Green. So now let's get into the models. Here is the RPM model for this afternoon. It develops the thunderstorm activity in the bluegrass area. Now, keep in mind, thunderstorms last night were popping here in central Indiana. They raced through Ripley County, with Switzerland County, where a young girl actually was killed due to a tree falling in Switzerland County, Indiana. Then they fell apart once they moved into the bluegrass, but they left over a boundary that is sitting there sleeping right now. Once the sun hits out in a few hours, it's going to ignite. So that's why I think the confidence is higher in this area than it is here. RPM picking up on the idea of the thunderstorms popping in that area, and then we're quiet for the most part. Then we get into Wednesday morning. The front that is draped over area now to our south is going to lift back to the northeast as a warm front, but it's going to get tugged on this end first. When that happens, it's going to allow it to be pushed up while this end stays relatively stationary. So the front, by the time we get in tomorrow morning, is going to be at an angle like that. Well, the fronts in these kind of scenarios, they act as train tracks for thunderstorms to follow, complexes. So whatever develops early in the morning hours on Wednesday is going to follow the train track, south and east. Question is, will the front then be over us? Will it be already progressive into Ohio, or will it lag still and just now beginning its tilt in West Kentucky? Good questions to try to answer. Can't really yet. In general, model consensus is wavering between Carrollton and, say, Brandenburg as the zone where the front will be at that point when this complex is rolling in. So as it does so, we'll monitor that because it will slide in from the northeast or northwest. It will begin to weaken as it approaches, but still these have a tendency to race and accelerate a lot quicker than models indicate. So the potential is there for some wind damage as these fly through the area, at least a few warnings. They should become elevated in nature as they move through, which means the base of the cloud pretty high up. They may have strong winds. The radar may detect strong winds, but to get the winds to the surface level to create damage can be more of a challenge, especially at this time of the day. Although the timing has been pushing slower and slower to late morning tomorrow, which would give a little more credence to that being a surface-based, a lowering cloud deck for this activity for the MCS. So still some questions on this morning stuff, but that to me needs to be watched. Then for the afternoon, now this is where RPM saying the boundary stalls out at this point. This is where it's going to put the brakes on. And then we get multiple waves that ride up and down that front, impacting Cincinnati over and over and maybe some of our northern counties. I could see that. It's not out of the realm of possibilities. But the main show is this. It doesn't look like much here on RPM, but it would be a complex of thunderstorms with a MCS, mesoscale convective system. These systems, it's like a little low pressure with its little warm front and its little cold front. That's what they look like, but in that kind of a scale, that small scale, just like that. And you can actually see the spinning of the low pressure with them as they move. So you got warm air flooding potential on this flank, and then you get your very high wind Boeing segments on the southern flank. So it's a very mini storm system, basically. And you can kind of see that here. It's the warm front. Here's where the low would be, or we call it MCV. And here's where the cold front portion would be. And it takes it diving more to the east-southeast, although there is some, credits here to it could move more southeast, and that's going to put it awful close to our area. We need to monitor that. As it moves on through, it'll have a tail to it. That tail will then likely be the cold front that unite some thunderstorms early on Thursday, maybe even more so on the Thursday afternoon and evening, and then we're done. That's just one model. That's the RPM. I hope you got all that. Let's do it again now with the NAM model, and I'll go quicker. This afternoon, it's given an idea of the eastern Kentucky activity. It does try to develop it, though, more into the slight risk zone. Overnight tonight, we're all right, but then as we into tomorrow morning, that warm front moves through. It's hard to determine because the model quality here is not great, but it determines that you can see the boundaries generally in through here for these MCSs to track in through the morning and afternoon period. And then that's the main one right there, tracking across Ohio at 1:30 in the morning. And then that moves out, and then as we into Thursday morning, the tail, the actual front, then pushes in and then pushes off to the south as we get into the afternoon evening time period with more thunderstorms. We'll have to watch that tail, because if the tail pushes real far to the south and we have a lot of debris clouds here on Thursday, that could really limit our severe threat. So Thursday's a little questionable too on how much instability. So now let's look at the data. First off, this afternoon, this is the meso analysis. Here's Louisville. I know it's hard to see this. Let me get my pen, change color. Sorry about that. This is the meso analysis. Here's Louisville right here. Highest instability, about 3,000 on surface space instability in eastern Kentucky. That's pretty high. I mean, still elevated across central Kentucky. And look how it drops off in our Indiana counties. So this is eastern Kentucky deal. Now, the downdraft cape, this is the ability to produce some gusty damaging winds for pulse thunderstorms based on instability. They pulse up and then collapse, and they're gone off the radar in a matter of an hour. That is elevated more to the west versus the east. So what looks to me is that we're facing a scenario here, because when you look at even the wind shear for these thunderstorms to maintain themselves for a bit of time, it's also overlapping where the higher instability is. So they organized thunderstorms, maybe if some warnings, would take place eastern Kentucky. Anything that develops in central Kentucky this afternoon should be pulse thunderstorms. Very brief, very isolated. That's why I'm not too confident on it being a slight risk in central Kentucky versus I think it fits slight risk more here in eastern Kentucky. But I digress. All right, and looking at PWatts too, by the way, they are relatively high. This is how much rain, 1.6 is what it's listed as. That's how much rain would fall if the storm didn't move. 1.6 inches of rain in an hour's time. And so they should move to an extent, but it tells you that there could be a flash flooding potential, obviously, in any of the storms that are slow. All right, let's move quickly here into tomorrow morning. There's the warm front moving in right over us tomorrow morning. It's got a decent wind field with it, nothing off the charts, but a decent wind field to sustain that MCS diving through in the morning hours. As we get into the afternoon, we start to see the signs here of the MCS around Chicago taking shape. And look at this as we get into the evening time period. Whew. These are some strong winds as you get into the afternoon period. Right over just north of Indianapolis, Indiana, tracking to the east, southeast. What a wind field. I mean, we're talking about winds of 70 to 80 miles per hour over several counties, potentially moving through Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio in the afternoon. How much of that is going to clip Kentucky is what we've really got to watch. One thing I will say, MCSs love moisture. They love it. They love instability. They love, though, higher dew points. And for tomorrow evening, there is a pocket of higher dew point riding through here. So while the MCS may track east, I still think it's going to aim more towards Cincinnati later in the afternoon and evening. So for those of you along the I-71 corridor, you need to be weather aware as we keep an eye on this. Thursday, the MCS activities weight are east, but the tail is over us. This is the actual front. And timing's everything here on Thursday, whether or not we see the thunderstorms pop on us or just south of us or even north of us. We'll see how that plays out. But Thursday's a little iffy on the development as far as location, but the instability is showing up there. So yes, there will be a severe risk on Thursday, and then we're in the zone to quiet down for Friday. That hurt my brain just talking about it. I hope you guys are enjoying your day. I will see you guys tomorrow on my normal shift. Take care.